What's up YouTube, Uncle40 here, giving you guys a video on what I think a good Yu-Gi-Oh play is, or basically making the right move, quote unquote, because a lot of players don't seem to understand what a good move is, as opposed to, you know, what a possible other move could be. Now, Yu-Gi-Oh players always have this fixation with saying that, well, that was the correct move, and then you will hear people often complain about, well, you made the wrong move, and, you know, I lost because of it. Well, I mean, it wasn't the wrong move if you lost. There are things that are classified as good, and things that are classified as wrong. Now, let's see here. A right Yu-Gi-Oh move is what is considered the best under the circumstances, or what many Yu-Gi-Oh players at that time in that same situation would consider good. So, for me, you know, if your opponent's got 3 back row, like in the Gravekeeper video, I knew that, you know, with them playing Gravekeepers, they always have a Tomb. Now, Tomb is a counter trap card, much like Infinity Barrier, that says, no, you don't get your one thing. So, when I summoned my Gale, I didn't use the effect because I knew that they had Tomb. Now, some people don't seem to understand that I don't want to lose an important piece of my combo. Playing Stardust Assault mode, the deck requires, you know, you need your tuner to be able to do something. And if it gets Tombed, unfortunately, I can't do my combo. So, knowing that your opponent always is going to have Tomb and Gravekeepers, you should always assume the worst, or always assume that they have their out. It's just the appropriate thing to do, in my opinion. So, knowing that my opponent has key cards that can shut me down, I worked around the combo, and many people are like, well, you did that wrong. You don't want to let Gravekeepers get advantage on you. That's the point. Looking at Gravekeepers, when they have Recruiter out, they're going to recur back another card from their deck, which could be another troublesome card, like Spy or Descendant. Both are cards that have the ability to generate advantage. Now, the biggest concern that a lot of people don't understand is when you're playing something like Stardust Assault mode, you don't want to let your opponent generate too much hurtful card advantage for you that would give them an out to your board. Now, granted, with Tomb, not using the Gale effect on a monster, knowing they have 3 back row, and then just going into Stardust works out as well. The thing is here, what else comes after the Stardust is for certain. If they have Tomb and you flip Assault Mode Activate, well, you just went, you know, for the 2 cards. You -1 yourself to Synchro, and then if you flip Assault Mode Activate, Tribute, and they Tomb you, you just win another -1 because you Tribute for cost on Assault Mode. Now, the part that really sucks about this entire scenario is just what can you do to get around to force the Tomb. Yes, you can attack with your monster, forcing your opponent to lose their monster on the board, and then do your plays without forcing the Tomb. But in the certain situation I was in, I also comboed up with Adreus to kill the Necrovalley to force the Tomb. Tomb is the only card in Necrovalley, or in Gravekeepers, that can essentially stop Stardust Assault mode. So, looking at the situation, you have to do what's best for your deck. You cannot let your opponent have a live play, and you need to make sure that you can play around back row. What I consider good about certain decks is their ability to play around back row. To me, a good play for a heavy deck that plays against, or a heavy monster deck that plays against back row, such as Gadgets. When I see 3 back row turn 1 playing Gadgets, I go, alright, how soon can I clear out those 3 back row? Because I know you have 3 cards in your hand, which are probably monsters. So at this point in time, they're either monsters or they're something reactive like Dark Hole. So I need to use my monsters to bait out your back row, much like in the same case scenario that we had with the Gravekeeper Stardust matchup. To me as a player, I want to make sure that I can clear out back row, and then I set up my combos. There will be times, though, and I'm not going to lie about this, where I just kind of go YOLO ham, go smash through back row as soon as possible. That's why things like Forbidden Lance, 101, Maestro are very important, just because they have the ability to eat massive back row. Now, many players will argue, well, that's just bad, you shouldn't, you know, smash through back row like that. Well, the more back row your opponent has, the more troublesome you're going to be when your opponent just flips 1 and wins the game. And you should always be concerned about what can happen. Now, that's what I consider making a good play. It's what you instinctively think is best at the time that will give you the best results and allow you to win the game in a quick fashion or something along those lines, or that will generate you the best possible outcome. Now, often in tournaments, you will hear players complain about how their opponent made the wrong play and they lost because of it. This was something that I saw Josh Graham mention on his video series that he was talking about. Players that are considered pro will make moves based on what they think your accurate play is going to be. Now, this is actually very interesting to think about here. So, me playing gadgets, I am going to set up my cards based on how I think you're going to anticipate your attack. On your turn, you're going to make a setup to best counteract me, knowing what you think I have, and then you're going to set back up thinking that you have the right play to counteract my next turn. Now, this is a good stage of Yugioh. Now, this has both players thinking about what is correct and what else is correct. So, both players at this point in time are both accurately making the best moves against each other. Now, when another player involved with these two, when one of the player goes, well, fuck it, I'm going to try this, it knocks the other player off of balance because they don't know how to interpret the move. Now, this is considered a wrong move by the player that is thinking they're making a correct move, and the player, excuse me, let's wind that up. The player that is interpreted to receive what they think their opponent's going to do, and then the person going YOLO. So, person 1 is going YOLO, person 2 is expected to receive something like a 101 attack to ensure that they're back row. Person 1 is like, I'm going to go Yugioh Geist to attack into your face down monster instead of dealing with the special summon attack position monster. That throws off player 2. Now, the move that player 1 is making could be disrupting player 2 from making an additional move on their next turn with their face down monster, which gives player 1 an overwhelming advantage because they're making a move that is less expected and less anticipated by player 2. Now, these are the things that you'll hear many players complain about. They go, oh, well, my opponent misplayed and they won the game. Well, they didn't misplay. They just out-predicted you, much like Pokemon. If you play competitive Pokemon, prediction, 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 prediction. I recommend that if you want to get good at predicting, I would play some competitive Pokemon or watch people play competitive Pokemon and see how well prediction comes into play. Always trying to be one step ahead of your opponent. I would say Pokemon is a very, very, very good tool for learning about prediction. If you're going to play Yu-Gi-Oh, make sure that you know what you're doing with your deck. Step 1, know what you're doing with your deck. Know your deck in and out. Number 2, play as many other decks as you can. This is what the internet is for, kids. The internet gives you the lovely, lovely, lovely ability to play against other decks, play against other people, and get the chance to, learn how the other decks work. This is why you'll see me play Gear, Prophecy, things like that at my locals, because I prefer to learn how the decks play by being behind the wheel of them. So, number 3, take what you learn from playing these decks in step 2 and apply them back to your deck in step 1. Learn what plays you did with this deck that you can do in this deck to counteract this deck from step 2 with step 1. It kind of gives you a nice little interpretation to make accurate plays. So this is just a nice little rundown. Sorry if this got a little bit confusing. I'm not the best with explaining things, but if you guys caught anything in here, this guy's video should make you guys, I would say, a little bit better competitively. So if you guys want to get started with a little bit predicting, and those of you guys that play competitive Pokemon, why not give it a shot? Competitive Pokemon is very good for teaching people how to predict in the sense of the game. You should watch, I'd say, maybe 2 or 3 videos on Pokemon. Moody Pones is a very good channel. She does a lot of competitive Pokemon stuff. Same thing with Vexicus. You guys know our Cordero. He's got a lot of stuff on it too. So take what you can learn from those videos, apply it to Yu-Gi-Oh, and see where it will get you guys. So leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think about this. There's nothing wrong with learning from outside sources, it can definitely help you. The organization has a lot of good articles too, especially the Raccoon one. I read the Raccoon article on his deck, and I must say it was a really good read. So I would check out all of these things I've said when you get time. So, alright guys, maybe later.